The office never slept. It only quieted, the way a predator does when it pauses between hunts. Elena learned early that silence inside Dante Morti's headquarters did not mean safety. It meant something was being decided somewhere above her pay grade. She sat at her desk exactly as she had every morning for the past 3 years. Spine straight, hands steady, expression neutral enough to disappear into. The polished marble floors reflected the overhead lights like still water. Men twice her size and 10 times her danger passed by without really seeing her. That was intentional. Elena had built her career on being forgettable. She was Dante Morti's secretary, on paper. In reality, she was the filter between chaos and order. She scheduled meetings that prevented wars. She rerouted shipments that saved millions. She caught errors in financial reports that would have put men in prison. She knew which calls to interrupt and which ones to delay by exactly 5 minutes so tempers could cool. She knew which names not to write down, which conversations to forget the moment they ended. She ran his empire quietly, while pretending she could be replaced. No personal photos on her desk, no lunch plans, no drinks after work, no stories about family or weekends. Her coworkers knew nothing about her beyond the fact that if Elena handled it, it would be done correctly. The armor she wore was invisible, but it was thick, necessary. Her fingers moved across the keyboard with mechanical precision, updating a shipping schedule that would never be audited by anyone outside the family. The screen blurred for half a second. She froze. It came again, a slow, rolling dizziness. Her stomach tightened, not pain exactly, but wrong. A wave of nausea rose suddenly and violently enough that she had to grip the edge of the desk. Breathe. Elena lowered her head slightly, letting her hair fall forward as cover. Anyone watching would think she was reading. No one ever watched her closely. That was the advantage of being invisible. She counted, 1, 2, 3. The sensation passed, leaving behind a thin sheen of sweat and a pulse beating too fast beneath her ribs. She reached for her water bottle, took a careful sip, and resumed typing as if nothing had happened. Mistakes were dangerous in this building. Weakness was worse. From the corner of her eye, she saw Dante step out of the elevator. The air changed immediately. It always did. He did not raise his voice. He did not hurry. He did not need to. Men straightened instinctively when he passed. Conversations stopped. Elena did not look up right away. She never did. He trusted her because she did not fawn, did not seek attention, did not waste his time with unnecessary words. She felt him before she saw him. The quiet gravity of his presence pulling the room into alignment. "Elena," he said. Just her name, calm, controlled. "Yes," she replied instantly, already standing, tablet in hand. His dark eyes flicked to the screen, then to her face. For a fraction of a second, something sharpened there. Assessment, concern maybe, or calculation. With Dante, the line was thin. "You're pale," he said. "I didn't sleep well," she answered, smooth and automatic. Not a lie, just incomplete. He studied her another heartbeat longer than necessary, then nodded. "Push the Milan call back 20 minutes and cancel dinner." "Yes." He walked away, trusting her to execute without question. He always did. More than anyone else in the building, he trusted her. That was the irony. She knew the most and shared the least. Her stomach twisted again, sharper this time. Panic brushed the edge of her control. Not here. At precisely 10 minutes past noon, Elena excused herself and went to the private restroom adjacent to the executive offices. She locked the door behind her and leaned against the cool marble counter as the nausea surged without mercy. This time, she barely made it. When it passed, she stayed there, breathing slowly, staring at her reflection. Her face looked the same, composed, controlled, except her eyes were too bright, too alert, like an animal that sensed danger before it arrived. Her hand drifted, almost unconsciously, to her lower abdomen. 6 weeks. The word echoed like a gunshot in her head. She had known before the test confirmed it. Her body had told her. The missed cycle. The exhaustion that sleep did not fix. The way smells turned her stomach. The way panic had begun to wake her in the middle of the night. And she knew exactly who the father was. There had only been one night, one impossible lapse in judgment after 3 years of perfect restraint. One moment where control slipped and desire took its place. No witnesses, no promises, no morning after conversation. One mistake. Dante had left before dawn, as precise and unreadable as always. They had never spoken of it again. The office had returned to normal. The world had continued. Except Alina's had not. She pressed her palms to the counter, grounding herself. This was not a problem yet. Problems could be solved. Plans could be made. She had already begun to think in terms of exits and contingencies. He could never know. In Dante Morty's world, knowledge was power, and pregnancy was leverage. She would not allow herself or her child to become either. Alina straightened, fixed her expression, and unlocked the door. By the time she returned to her desk, the armor was back in place. No one noticed the woman who knew too much. Not yet. Alina did not go home after work that night. She stayed until the building emptied and the city lights replaced the sun. The office became quieter, but more dangerous in its stillness. This was when decisions were made that did not appear on any schedule. She finished every task with deliberate perfection. Every email answered. Every document aligned. Every loose thread tied, so tightly no one could pull it later. By the time she shut down her computer, she knew one thing with certainty. She could not stay. The realization settled slowly, not with panic, but with clarity. In Dante, Morty world, there was no such thing as an accident that lasted. Everything was discovered. Everything was used. She gathered her coat and bag with the same calm she used every day. No one stopped her. No one ever did. The drive home blurred past her windshield. Streetlights smeared into gold lines. Her stomach twisted again, forcing her to pull over once until the wave passed. She rested her forehead against the steering wheel, breathing slowly. This is temporary, she told herself. This is solvable. Her apartment was small, clean, quiet. A place she had chosen because it left no impression. She locked the door, kicked off her shoes, and sat on the edge of the bed. Only then did her hands begin to shake. She opened her laptop and stared at the blank screen. Then she began to type. Resignation letter. Professional brief, unremarkable. 2 weeks' notice. Pursuing other opportunities. Grateful for the experience. She rewrote it 6 times. Each version colder than the last. Emotion was dangerous. Finality was safety. She researched cities. Flights. Short-term rentals. Places far from ports and routes and familiar names. Places where the Morty family had no reason to look. The plan formed quickly because planning was what kept her alive. Leave before her body changed. Leave before rumors. Leave before anyone noticed she was not drinking coffee. Leave before Dante looked at her too closely. She pressed her palm to her stomach. Not yet, she whispered. Just a little longer. Sleep came in fragments. Each dream ended with a door closing. Each waking moment carried the same thought. In his world, women did not stay after mistakes. They vanished. Or they were erased. The next morning she arrived early. Earlier than usual. The building was still half dark. She liked it that way. Her desk looked exactly the same. No trace of the war happening inside her. She worked as if nothing had changed. Answered calls. Scheduled meetings. Intercepted threats disguised as invitations. Dante arrived just before 9. She felt him before she saw him. That awareness sent a sharp twist through her chest. He paused at her desk. Looked at her longer than necessary. You are early, he said. She met his gaze evenly. I had work to finish. A pause. A flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. Do not push yourself, he said. The words were neutral, but they landed too close to truth. She nodded. Of course. He moved on, trusting her as he always had. That trust felt like a knife. By noon she knew she was running out of time. Her body was no longer silent. It was counting down. She saved the resignation letter to a hidden folder, then another copy on a flash drive. Redundancy meant survival. One night, one mistake. In Dante Morty world, mistakes were never forgiven. And Alina intended to disappear before hers was discovered. Alina was halfway through a shipment audit when the message arrived. Not an email. Not a call. A single line on her internal screen. Come to my office now. No name. No signature. None was needed. Her pulse spiked before she could stop it. This was not scheduled. Nothing unscheduled ever happened in this building. She stood slowly smoothing her jacket. Every movement measured. Every breath controlled. The walk to Dante's office felt longer than usual. The corridor seemed narrower. The air heavier. Guards stood straighter as she passed. When she reached the door, it was already open. Dante stood near the windows, his back to her. The city stretched below him, sharp and unforgiving. His hands were in his pockets, a posture she had learned to read. Danger. Close the door, he said. She did. The sound echoed too loud. Sit. She did not argue. She never did. For several seconds, he said nothing. He watched the city as if it were a chessboard, as if people were pieces. Then he spoke. How long were you planning to disappear? The words hit her like a blade. Clean, precise, devastating. I do not understand, she said. He turned slowly. His gaze locked on hers. Do not insult me by lying, Alina. Her throat tightened. She said nothing. You changed your travel access last night. You backed up your personal files twice. You requested copies of documents you have never needed before. And you scheduled an appointment at a clinic that does not take insurance. Each word was calm, controlled, final. He stepped closer. You are pregnant. The world tilted. Her vision narrowed. The hum of the building disappeared. She stood abruptly. That is not your concern. His jaw tightened just slightly. The smallest tell. It became my concern the moment I realized the timing. She clenched her fists. You cannot prove anything. I do not need to. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could feel the heat of him, smell the faint trace of smoke and cologne. 6 weeks ago. One night. No witnesses. No mistakes afterward. His voice lowered. Except this one. Silence stretched between them. She forced herself to meet his gaze. I will leave. You will never hear from me again. No. The word landed heavy. You do not get to decide that. Her fear turned sharp. Anger followed. You do not own me. You do not control my body. That child is not your property. His eyes darkened. Dangerous now. Like it or not, you're staying. I know that baby is mine. The sentence locked around her like a chain. You cannot force me, she said. Her voice shook, but she did not back away. He studied her. Not with rage. With certainty. I am not forcing you. I am protecting what belongs to me. That is not protection. That is a K. He exhaled slowly. You think disappearing keeps you safe. You think leaving removes danger. It does not. He turned slightly, revealing the city again. Every rival I have is watching. Every weakness. Every rumor. A pregnant woman linked to me walking, unguarded through this city. That is not freedom. That is a death sentence. Her breath caught. I will not let my child become leverage. I did not ask for your protection. No. But you're carrying my blood. And I do not ask when it comes to that. She shook her head. You are wrong. About what? About everything. His gaze softened, just enough to confuse her. You are wrong about one thing. He stepped back, giving her space. Just enough to breathe. You think I discovered this by accident. You think I only care because it is my child. Her stomach twisted. I noticed because I watch what matters. I noticed because you stopped eating. Because your hands shook when you thought no one saw. Because you matter more than anyone in this building. The words unsettled her more than the threat. You are staying, Alina. Not because I command it, but because leaving will destroy you. She felt trapped. Seen. Exposed. This was no longer about escape. It was about survival. And Dante, Morty had already decided which side she would survive on. The changes began before Alina fully understood what staying meant. They arrived quietly disguised as efficiency and concern. A new access badge placed on her desk. A driver waiting every morning without being announced. A guard who appeared whenever she stood from her chair. No explanations were given. None were needed. Her routine was rewritten in invisible ink. She noticed it first in the small things. The way elevators arrived instantly when she pressed the button. The way hallways cleared just before she entered. The way doors opened without her asking. She was no longer invisible. She was watched. Dante never raised his voice. Never gave an order she could openly refuse. He simply made alternatives disappear. When she attempted to leave the building alone at lunch, a man stepped into her path, calm, respectful, immovable. Miss Alina, the car is ready. I am walking today, she said evenly. The man did not argue. He did not threaten. He only looked apologetic. Orders. The word hung heavy. She turned and walked back inside, her hands shaking at her sides. That evening, she was escorted to a new apartment. Not far from her own, but higher, safer, surrounded by glass and security. You can stay here, Dante said. His tone measured. Temporary. Temporary never meant temporary in his world. The space was beautiful. Too beautiful. Soft light. Thick walls. No visible locks. A cage built to feel like a gift. You cannot do this, she said quietly. I already have, he replied. She paced the living room, anger burning through her fear. You think luxury makes this acceptable. You think comfort erases consent. He watched her with an intensity that made her chest tighten. I think you are alive because of this, he said. And you will remain alive because of me. I did not ask to be protected. No. You asked to run. And that is not an option. That night, she stood at the window, watching the city. Lights blinking like distant warnings. Every street suddenly dangerous. Every shadow suspect. Her body betrayed her again. A wave of nausea doubled her over. Her hands gripping the counter. She closed her eyes. Breathed through it. In the silence, she realized something terrifying. The apartment was quiet because nothing could reach her. Not help. Not escape. The next days blurred together. Her desk was moved closer to Dante's office. Meetings were rescheduled around her energy. Food appeared on her table without her ordering it. Eat, he said once. Not unkind. Not negotiable. I am not a child. No. You are carrying one. The words struck harder than she expected. She slept poorly. Dreams filled with doors locking. With hands guiding her forward while blocking the way back. Yet something complicated stirred beneath the fear. Dante checked on her every night. Not with touch. Not with words. With presence. He would stand in the doorway. Ask if she needed anything. Wait for her answer. When she snapped, he did not retaliate. When she went silent, he did not push. Protection without warmth. Control without cruelty. That made it worse. Because part of her wanted to believe it was care. On the fourth night, she confronted him, her voice steady, her spine straight. If I stay, if I obey this arrangement, I keep my job, my autonomy, my name. He studied her carefully. You keep your mind, your competence, your voice. That is not what I asked. He stepped closer, stopping just short of touching her. You keep your life, and the child keeps theirs. She swallowed. And if I leave? He did not hesitate. Then I will move heaven and hell to bring you back. Alive. The truth of it settled heavy in her chest. This was not romance. Not yet. This was survival under velvet rules. And Alina understood at last. She was not staying because he commanded it. She was staying because the world outside his protection had already become more dangerous than the cage he built around her. The first rumor reached Alina before the first threat. It came in silence, in glances that lingered too long, in conversations that stopped when she entered a room. She felt it in the way the building watched her now. Not with curiosity, with calculation. She was no longer just Dante's secretary. She was something else. Something noticed. By the end of the week, she knew the truth. Someone was asking questions. It began with shipping reports being requested twice. Then with a courier delivery that never arrived. Then with a name whispered in the hallway by a guard who did not realize she could hear. Salvatore Greco. Dante rival. Older. Ruthless. A man who built his empire by studying weaknesses, not strength. Alina knew the type. Men like Greco did not attack head-on. They waited. They watched. They collected leverage. That night Dante returned later than usual. His expression unreadable. His jacket still on. Danger clinging to him like smoke. They are watching you, he said without preamble. Her heart sank. I assumed they already were. A slow nod. Smart. He poured himself a drink, then stopped. Set the glass aside untouched. Greco has noticed changes. He sees new security. New roots. New silence. Alina crossed her arms. And he assumes the reason. Yes. The word landed heavy. A woman close to me. Suddenly guarded. Suddenly important. She swallowed. So now what? Now nothing changes. On the surface. That was never comforting. Dante stepped closer. His voice lower. You do not speak to anyone outside this building, alone. You do not share details. You do not trust kindness. I already do not. A pause. A flicker of something like regret. Good. The next morning, Alina found a note on her desk. No signature. No threat. Just a reminder. We see you. Her breath caught. She folded the paper carefully and placed it in her bag. She did not show anyone. At lunch, she noticed a black sedan parked across the street. Engine running. Windows dark. The driver did not move. Did not look away. That evening, her phone rang from an unknown number. She let it go to voicemail. The message was short. Too polite. Tell Dante congratulations. Her hands trembled. That night she confronted him. Fear stripped of anger. You said staying would keep the baby safe. He met her gaze steadily. It does. Safer than anywhere else. Safer is not safe. No. But it is survivable. The word chilled her. He moved closer, not touching. Grounding. Greco is probing. Testing limits. She whispered. And me. Yes. The truth settled painfully. She was no longer collateral. She was currency. Her voice broke despite herself. You promised this was protection. It is. Then why does it feel like I am bait? Because he has not acted yet. Dante jaw tightened. And because if he does, he will regret it. The certainty in his voice was terrifying. That night, Alina lay awake listening to the quiet. The guarded silence. The kind that existed only when violence was being prepared elsewhere. Her body reacted before her mind. A sharp cramp. A sudden wave of nausea. She pressed her hands to her stomach. Breathed slowly. This is not just about me anymore. The realization hardened something inside her. The next day she overheard two guards speaking in low tones. He wants proof. He wants leverage. He wants her exposed. She walked past them without reacting. Her face calm. Her steps even. Inside something shifted. If Greco wanted leverage, then secrecy was no longer safety. That evening, Alina stood in front of Dante's office. Her spine straight. Her fear controlled. "We need to talk," she said. He looked up instantly. "Say it. If they are watching me. If they are waiting. Then hiding is not protection." His eyes narrowed. "What are you suggesting?" She met his gaze unflinching. "That I stop pretending I am invisible." Silence stretched. Heavy. Dangerous. Dante studied her the way he studied battle maps. Slowly. Carefully. "You understand what visibility costs. I understand what silence costs." Another pause. Then a quiet admission. "You are right." The words shocked her. And that was when Alina realized something far more frightening than being watched. The moment Dante Morty began to listen to her. The war had already started. Alina noticed the change before Dante said a word. It was not in the guards or the cars or the silence. It was in him. He stopped standing behind her. Stopped watching from doorways. Stopped hovering like a shadow that refused to detach. Instead, he sat. He waited. He listened. The first time it happened, she almost missed it. They were alone in his office late evening. The city outside dark and endless. She was reviewing logistics reports. He was watching her hands move. "You should rest," he said. "I am fine." "That is not what I asked." She looked up surprised. "You never ask." Something shifted in his expression. A pause that felt unfamiliar. "Tell me when you are tired," he said. "Not when you think you should endure." The words unsettled her more than any order. Over the following days, the pattern continued. He asked instead of deciding. He waited instead of interrupting. He adjusted meetings when her face went pale. Not because a doctor ordered it. Because he noticed. One night the nausea hit hard. She barely made it to the bathroom before collapsing to her knees. The world narrowed to breath and pain. She did not hear him enter. Only felt his presence beside her. Solid calm, unflinching. He did not touch her at first. Did not crowd. Did not command. "I am here," he said. Nothing else. When the wave passed, she leaned back against the cool wall. Her hands shaking. "This is not weakness," she muttered. As if defending herself. "No," he said. "It is life." Later she found him in the kitchen. Standing barefoot. Sleeves rolled up. Cooking. She stared. Disoriented. "What are you doing?" "Making something mild." "You have not eaten." "You have staff for this." "I sent them away." She watched him move. Controlled even in something so ordinary. Yet softer. Almost human. Why, he asked quietly. "Why do you refuse help like it is poison?" "Because help always comes with a price." He nodded slowly. "In my world it does." Silence settled between them. Not tense. Not empty. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower. "I learned early that protection meant possession. That if you wanted something safe, you locked it away. That love was weakness others exploited." She listened without interrupting. "I was wrong," he said. The admission stunned her. He turned to face her. "Watching you fight every inch of space." watching you survive without becoming cruel. It forced me to see what control destroys. Her chest tightened. I do not know how to do this gently, but I am learning. That night the baby moved. For the first time, undeniable. Elena froze. Her breath caught. Dante's hand hovered unsure. May I? She nodded. His palm rested against her stomach. The movement strong. Real. His breath broke. A sound she had never heard from him. He stayed like that a long time, as if afraid the moment would disappear. I talk to him at night, he admitted. When you sleep, I tell him I will keep him safe, that I will be better than I was. Tears burned her eyes. Why tell me this? Because secrets rot, and I do not want you afraid of me anymore. She looked at him, truly looked. Not the boss. Not the monster others feared. A man terrified of losing something before it was born. For the first time, Elena understood. The cage had cracks. The walls were shifting. This was no longer just about survival. Something dangerous was growing. Not fear. Not control. Trust. The betrayal did not announce itself with gunfire. It arrived the way poison always did. Quiet. Precise. Already inside the walls. Elena felt it before she understood it. A shift in the building. Guards tense in the wrong way. Eyes not meeting hers. Phones checked too often. By midday, Dante's security chief asked her to come to the lower level. Not his office. Not Dante. That alone made her chest tighten. The room was windowless. Cold. Screens lining one wall. We have a problem, the man said. He pressed a button. The screen lit up. Elena stared at her own medical records. Her name. Her test results. Dates. Timelines. Her stomach dropped. How did they get this? Someone inside gave access. Her mouth went dry. Who? For a long moment, he did not answer. Then, Marco. The name landed like a blow. Marco had trained her, protected her, smiled when everyone else feared Dante. Marco, who brought her coffee when she worked late. Marco, who once told her quietly, "You are safer if you stay close to him." The room spun. Why? Leverage. The word echoed. They think exposing you will weaken him. Force him into a mistake. Her heart pounded. He knows. Yes. Dante knows. She left without remembering the walk. Without remembering the elevator. Her body moved on instinct alone. She found Dante in his office, standing very still, hands flat on the desk. The city behind him sharp and unforgiving. He already knew, she could tell. The air around him was lethal. They took your records, she said. I know. Her voice shook. Marco. I know. The silence between them was dangerous. Thick with restrained violence. You said I was protected. You were. Then how did this happen? He finally turned to face her. His eyes dark with something close to Ray. Because you trusted someone, I warned you not to. Her fear ignited into anger. You told me to trust you. To stay. To believe you were keeping me safe. And I am. Then why am I exposed? Because war adapts. The words cut. She stepped back. You used me as bait. His expression hardened. No. Then why did you let them watch? Because hiding you was no longer possible. Because the moment Greco noticed you. This became inevitable. Her voice broke. You never gave me a choice. I gave you survival. At the cost of what? Of truth. The words hung heavy. Before he could respond, an alarm sounded. Low. Controlled. Deadly. Dante's phone vibrated. She has gone, the voice said through the speaker. Who? Marco took her records and disappeared. We lost him at the docks. Elena blood ran cold. This is my fault. Dante closed his eyes briefly, then opened them. No. He moved toward her. This is mine. She shook her head, panic rising. If they have my information, if they know where I go, where I live, they will come for the baby. Yes. The word was brutal. She whispered. Then I cannot stay. You will. Not here. She stepped back again. I am leaving. You are not. She turned and ran. Alarms escalated. Shouting filled the halls. She did not think. Did not plan. Only one thought burned. If I disappear, they lose leverage. She reached the garage. A car already waiting. She slid inside, shouting for the driver to move. The gate opened, then closed. Too slow. A black van slammed into the side. Metal screamed. She felt hands. Rough. Vast. A hood pulled over her head. Her last thought before darkness took her was not fear. It was certainty. The war Dante had tried to keep away from her had finally found her, and she had walked straight into it. Elena woke to darkness and movement. The air smelled like oil and cold metal. Her wrists were bound, but not tightly. Enough to remind her not to fight. Enough to let fear do the work. The vehicle swayed beneath her. Rough road. Fast turns. No voices she could recognize. She focused on breathing. Slow. Controlled. For the baby. A door slammed. Hands pulled her upright. The hood was yanked away. Light burned her eyes. She was in a warehouse near the water. She knew because of the salt in the air. The echo of waves against concrete. The sound of chains shifting somewhere above. Salvatore Greco stepped into view. Older than Dante. Thinner. Eyes sharp with amusement. You are calmer than I expected, he said. That makes you more valuable. Where is Dante, she asked. Her voice steady despite the fear clawing her ribs. He smiled. On his way. Her heart dropped. Good, he continued. I prefer negotiations when everyone is present. He circled her slowly. Like she was inventory. You know what you are to him. Yes. Good. That makes this easier. He gestured to a chair. Sit. She did. Carefully. Protectively. Time stretched. Minutes felt like hours. Then the doors exploded inward. Gunfire cracked the air. Shouts. Chaos. Men fell. Others ran. Elena screamed as someone grabbed her, then released her abruptly. Dante was there. Not flanked. Not shielded. Alone. Blood streaked his temple. His eyes locked on her. Get away from her, he said. Greco laughed. You came without your army. That was stupid. Dante did not look at him. He moved toward Elena. A gunshot rang out. Dante staggered. A sharp breath tearing from his chest. Elena screamed his name. He did not fall. He kept moving. Greco's voice rose with disbelief. You are bleeding. Dante reached her. Cut her restraints. His hands steady. I told you, he said quietly. I would come back. More gunfire. Dante shoved her behind him, shielding her with his body. Greco cursed. Retreated. Sirens wailed in the distance. The warehouse fell silent, except for Elena sobbing breathless. Dante dropped to one knee. Then another. She caught him. Her hands slick with blood. Stay with me, she begged. Please. He smiled faintly, still commanding even now. I am fine. You are lying. I always do. Lights flooded the space. His men poured in. Secured everything. Someone knelt beside them, pressing gauze to Dante's wound. Elena refused to let go, her hands shaking. At the hospital, time blurred. Doctors moved fast, voices calm. Urgent. She sat alone eventually, hands folded over her belly. He chose her over power, over strategy, over everything. Hours later, a doctor approached. He will live. The bullet missed anything vital. Her knees nearly gave out. When she was finally allowed to see him, he was pale, weak, but alive. He opened his eyes when she stepped closer. You stayed, he murmured. I am not leaving. He watched her carefully, searching. There is something you need to know, he said. She leaned closer. The timing of the pregnancy. It was not perfect. Her heart stopped. I knew there was a chance the child was not mine. Tears spilled down her face. Then why? Because I chose you. Not the blood. You. She broke, sobbing against his hand. I stayed because you matter. Because I wanted you. Not because I claimed you. She pressed her forehead to his, shaking. I was wrong about you. He smiled weakly. I was wrong about everything at first. Silence settled. Not fear. Not control. Something stronger. Choice. Dante survived. But the city did not return to normal. In his world, nothing ever did. The attempt on Alina's life triggered consequences that rippled outward. Silent arrests. Disappearing names. Meetings held behind locked doors. Elena watched it all from the hospital window. The river below moving steadily, as if violence had never touched its surface. Dante lay in the bed beside her chair, connected to wires. Alive because he had chosen to be reckless. She replayed his words again and again. I chose you. Not the blood. Not the claim. You. When he finally woke fully, the room was quiet. No guards. No doctors. Just them. You should be angry, he said. She met his gaze. I am terrified. That is worse. You nearly died because of me. No. Because of the life I live. He shifted with a wince. But his eyes never left hers. I will dismantle everything that made you a target. She shook her head. No. Do not do that for me. Why? Because I do not want your love built on sacrifice. I want it built on choice. The word hung between them. Choice. I did not choose this world, she continued. I adapted to it. I survived inside it. He listened, not interrupting. But I choose now. Not fear. Not control. Not running. He reached for her hand slowly, asking without words. I am staying, she said. But not because you told me to. Relief crossed his face, followed by something like reverence. Then tell me the terms. She blinked. You would negotiate. I will always negotiate with you. Her breath caught. I want transparency. No secrets that involve my safety. No decisions about my body without my consent. Agreed. I want to work, not be hidden. Agreed. I want to be able to walk away if I ever choose to. His jaw tightened. You can leave whenever you want. Even now. Even now. She searched his face. Found no lie. Then she said the hardest thing. I want you. Not your protection. Not your empire. Just you. He exhaled like a man who had been holding his breath for years. Then you have me. Not as a K. Not as a shield. As a partner. That night he slept. And Alina stayed awake, watching the rise and fall of his chest. She realized something frightening and beautiful. He had changed. Because he wanted to. Not because she demanded it. The next morning news broke. Greco had been arrested. Marco was dead. The war was over. But the aftermath remained. Dante Empire would survive, but it would not remain untouched. Weeks later, Alina returned to the building. Not as a ghost, not as bait, but as a presence. People looked at her differently. With respect, with caution. She sat at her desk, and felt the baby move strongly. Dante stood in his doorway watching her. Not looming, not commanding. Just there. "We will announce things soon," he said. She nodded. "On our terms. Always." That night, she went to him willingly. No guards. No barriers. When he touched her, it was careful. Asking. Waiting. This was not conquest. This was trust. And as Alina rested against him, she understood the truth. The war had never been about territory or blood. It had been about whether love could exist. Without ownership. They had answered that question together. The city did not bow. It adjusted. Alina felt it the moment she stepped fully back into Dante's world. Not as a shad. Not as a protected secret. But as herself. People watched her openly now. Measured her presence. Calculated her place. She let them. Her body had changed. Her center of gravity shifted. The child inside her no longer hidden. No longer denied. Dante walked beside her, not ahead, not behind. That alone unsettled the room. The announcement came quietly. No press. No spectacle. Those who needed to know were told. Those who did not were irrelevant. Alina did not leave. She did not disappear. She stayed. But the difference was everything. She stayed by choice. Dante learned the weight of that truth slowly. Every day she remained was not obligation. It was permission. He did not tighten security without telling her. Did not move her schedule without asking. Did not touch without waiting. And Alina learned something too. Control was not always cruelty. Sometimes it was fear wearing armor. The child grew. Strong. Restless. Late at night, Dante would kneel beside her, his hand resting against her stomach. Listening. Not commanding. "I will teach him to be better than me," he said once. She answered without hesitation. "You already are." The birth came early. Vast. Violent. Life forcing itself forward. Dante did not leave her side. Not when she screamed. Not when she doubted. Not when fear threatened to take her under. When the child cried for the first time. The sound cut through everything that had come before. Dante cried too. Unashamed. A son. A life not born of fear, but forged through choice. In the months that followed, the world kept moving. Rivals recalculated. Allies adjusted. Alina returned to work on her terms. Not as a secretary. Not as a possession. As a partner. She knew too much. And now no one pretended otherwise. One evening, as the city burned gold beneath the sun, Dante stood behind her, his voice low. "You could still leave." She smiled softly. "I know. You always could. I always chose not to." He rested his forehead against hers. Not owning. Not claiming. Staying together had never been the command. Choosing each other was. And that was the most dangerous power either of them had ever held.